Hi, guys. This is Kayla Rose, your host with Faith, Purpose, and Freedom. Today, we have Kat Minks with us. She runs Adore Productions and a women's business networking group. So, entrepreneur on the run here.
Thank
So,
you for
we're
having me.
excited that you're here with us. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you so much, Kayla, for having me. So where do I start? Feels like I've lived a very full life already, even though I have more to accomplish, I know, in my
Yeah.
purpose. So I started my career 20 years ago, which is just crazy to me. It doesn't feel like it was that long, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, I've really done a lot.
Yeah.
I don't give myself credit for all the stuff I've done often, which I know a lot of us do. But um, so I started my career 20 years ago, actually not in events at all. I thought I was going to do something in film and TV. But in my heart, there was always like a little seed that was planted from the time I was flipping through like Vogue and wedding magazines when I was a young girl. Um, Actually, it was just I used to make like these collages of fashion, and I was obsessed with weddings and all that stuff. And so I knew I would do something in the realm of like photography or fashion or something. I didn't know what it was, and I started exploring it a little bit as a teenager and came up with this crazy idea. And I went to my parents and I said, I'm going to go to Hollywood and I'm going to go be a makeup artist for TV and film. And they were like, I'm in the Midwest, mind you. So they were
Yeah.
like, you're crazy. That's not what we do. Of course, my parents had very limiting beliefs. And I was the first person in my family to actually graduate from high school, even. My parents weren't even college graduates. So for me to come to them with this idea that I was even going to go to school after high school was crazy. And
Right.
so I went to Los Angeles and to makeup school and wardrobe styling school. And I learned how to style for TV, print, and film. I did everything I could to kind of survive. I ended up coming back to home, going back to Los Angeles, and having a career in makeup artistry and wardrobe styling. And through that introduced me to event design and event planning. I just happened to be hired by a wedding planner to do makeup for one of her clients. And she was like, "Are you busy in like a week?" And I was like, I don't have anything booked for that weekend. And she booked me on as a assistant planner on one of her jobs. And I get there and I remember driving up, mind you, I'm like 21 and I'm driving up a Malibu cliff and to this beautiful private estate. It was actually right by like the Bachelor Mansion. And I'm at this like beautiful private estate overlooking the ocean. And I was like, this is like a dream. I cannot believe that I am living this life. And I could have never imagined that God would put me in that spot when I was in my parents' house in the Midwest. Like, I, and everyone telling me you're crazy for even thinking that you can have that. And so it just is so interesting to me how that all came to fruition. And that kicked off my career in event design and event planning. And what was so funny and interesting about that very moment was this planner, before I even had moved to Los Angeles, I was looking on the web for just wedding and event planning because at that time, the only people that hired wedding and event planners were celebrities. It wasn't even something you hired in the Midwest at all. It was not it was just it wasn't a career. And so
Right.
that's why I had chose makeup and wardrobe styling because I already felt like wedding planning was just like that's an even crazier pipe dream if you want to think that you can be a wedding planner. And
Right.
so I so it was such a backdoor kind of way that I got into wedding and event planning. But I realize now, looking back at that and all the ways that my life has unfolded, that God directed that path like something I could have never known. And it all was just from a very tiny glimmer as a young girl of like, maybe this is something. And it turned out to be kind of enveloped all of who I am today.
Yeah. And something I just want to say to everyone is people will try to stop you from pursuing your dreams. They will give you discouragement. If they didn't have the vision, they didn't see it, they don't understand. And honestly, if it's not something they're passionate about, they're not going to understand why you're pursuing your dream. But pursue it anyway. Keep doing it even with the negativity, because if you would have let people telling you you can't do that, you would where would you be today?
Hmm. That's exactly right. Yep.
Like,
And you
I
have
don't
to learn, it's definitely something that you have to learn like through lessons in life. I hope that me sharing my story helps people to not listen to the noise of everybody else around them and to pay attention to what God's speaking in you and learning how to listen to him and learning how to really be led by him instead of trying to make the decisions on your own, really walking hand in hand with what God is trying to tell you. And I think about like, oh gosh, I made this mistake, and what would my life have been if I would have chosen that a little bit differently? But now I realize that it doesn't matter if you try to take things into your own hands, because he always guides you in the way that
He
what
does.
he meant for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I just think oftentimes too, we don't even realize that what we go through in life all has a purpose. And we have to be willing to sit back and look at that. I know as I've just sat back and been like, wow, I went through this, and this, but it's because look at this and this that's happened. And honestly, I think that's the greatest part of life and part of
Mm,
our journey is we get to sit back and really know later in life that everything had a purpose. It's up to us though to align our passion with our purpose
mhm,
and to align everything that's happened in our life with that purpose. I think
absolutely.
oftentimes people give up too soon and they think, I can't do this. Yes, you can. If you want to, you can. If you're willing, you can. So one of the, big things I want you to talk about is the struggles because oftentimes people hit struggles and they give up. I know for me, I had this passion like I want to do this or I want to do that. I had all these goals and then it would get tough or frustrating and I would stop. And I'm realizing now that I I could have continued going and I might be further than I am now had I not
Mhm.
given up. And that's just being vulnerable and honest.
Yeah.
So for
Well,
you, like
and
what struggles did you go through that were like trying, but you had to push through them?
mhm. Well, I think foundationally, I learned at a very young age about resilience and about how, I mean, I grew up like my mother was addicted to drugs. Um, I my parents were 16 and 17 when they had me. I did not have like a perfect household. And I didn't, you know, going through that and going through being so poor, like I'm talking, I always tell this story. We were so poor when I was younger that we had nothing in the fridge. We had ketchup sandwiches, like literally ketchup on bread. That was all we had to eat. I mean, it was really hard, and it created a I think you have a choice when you are a kid and growing up as an adult that way. You have a choice to either let that be your story and let that be what guides you, the poor me, the victim mentality, or you have the choice to make it your anthem and your reason to do better.
Yeah.
And that I chose, this is not going to be a poor me situation. I chose from a very young age. There has to be a way out of this. There has to be a better way. And I've always felt that way since I was young. And, you know, has it always been perfect? Have I always been like, oh, I'm, making loads of money or what? No, it's not like that. But I know the hard work that I've put in, the work ethic that I would not have if I didn't put that drive in myself. If I didn't tell myself when I was younger, this is not going to define me. I am not going to be the baby in the corner, as they say from that famous movie. I'm not going to do that. I am going to stand up. I'm going to get up and get out of this. And so that's always been a driving force in my life. And, um, while I didn't have a relationship with faith at all, my
Yeah.
family, they were not believers. And so I've had to also, while walking through that, I was always curious about faith. I would pray. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know any Bible verses. I just knew there was something in me that was like, you need to pray about this. And so I started journaling from a young age, and that got me through um that create the talk around me of like, your ideas are crazy, you're crazy, you'll never get out of this. It helped me drown out that noise so that I could push myself forward. And that was kind of the beginning of um me really figuring out, okay, what can I what are small steps that can get me into the next level, the next realm of where I need to go. I didn't know, I couldn't see the journey, like when kids sign up to go to college and they say, this is what I'm going to be when I grow up. I couldn't see that fully, but I knew if I just took little steps here and there, it would get me to somewhere that was better than where I was and where I came from.
Right. Well,
Um,
that's so amazing because you found a way out of something that most people would have just stayed stuck in. And that's beautiful. That's a testimony in its own. Like you had to work your butt off to get there and you were like, I'm going to LA one way or another. I'm going. And
yeah,
you got there. And you
yeah.
even learned to drive through LA, which is also another accomplishment.
Yes, yes. Pre MapQuest, I had to use map books when I was in makeup and wardrobe styling school. I remember that. I had to rent a used car because there is no like metro transit at the time that can take you. LA is just not a very is not a like very walkable. You can't get to where you're going. So, and I lived close to Santa Monica, and at the time, the school I went to was in Burbank, so you couldn't like just get there. I remember when I first went to Los Angeles and I signed up for school, and it's my first day to go to school, and I thought, well, I'm going to be able to take trains and walk to get to college. I was 3 hours late for my first day of class
Stop.
because there was no like connecting way to get there. Now, mind you, if you had a car and you drove from where I was living in Culver City to Burbank, it would only take like 35 minutes. But it took 3 hours by bus and train to get to my school because that's how
Wow.
inefficient Los Angeles transit is. So, um, so I had to rent a used car. It was not anything fancy. I was just happy to be in Los Angeles and be
Right.
breaking out and doing this. And yeah, so
It got you
it
from point A to point B, and that's all that mattered.
right. um, but yeah, like I said, at that time I didn't have God in my life. I was just trying to figure out how to get to someplace better than where I was at. And
Oh,
Yeah.
I often look back and I think when I was a kid, I didn't always know. We didn't go to church. I mean, my mom talked about God here or there, but we didn't go to church. And it was always like a mean, wrathful God whenever she did talk about him back then. Um, and so, you're almost terrified to talk to him. But I remember still talking to God when I was a little girl. And I can remember just, you always have that right from wrong. You always got the little
Mhm.
devil and the little angel on your shoulders. And I feel like we all have that. It's just, do we all tune into it?
Yeah.
For you, you definitely did. You knew. And
But
I
you
think,
don't know. That's the whole thing, is you don't know that you're tuning into what God wants for you. It took me
right.
a long time. And actually, if I just think about like my faith in the last few years, it took me until just the last few years to really understand that there is no accidents. God lays things out for you. And while you are making the decisions, he always finds a way to correct your path.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and you just have to fine tune the way that you listen to God. And that I mean, you can live a life of regret. Like, what if I had listened to him harder, at this age or this stage in my life? But you have to understand too that God has God sees the plan for you, and he's making it unfold in ways that if I had not gone through most of the thing, all of the things in my life, all of those backdoor moments, I can look at how I made a decision that was not with God because I didn't have the relationship with them, but he always corrected. He
Absolutely.
always corrected me. And so I call those like my backdoor VIP moments,
Yeah.
because I'm standing, because I lived in Los Angeles and I was working in TV and film, and I still love that lifestyle, of course, because I'm in the event design, which is like a luxury type of service. It's still seen, it's not a have to have to a lot of
Right.
people still. And so I look at like all of those backdoor moments where I'm standing at the door and I'm like, God, open this door for me. I want this. I'm standing at the door. Please just make it happen the way that I want it to. And every single time, at big moments in my life that occurred and that were amazing, incredible moments, it's always been a backdoor moment. Always. It's always been like you are standing at the front door, Kat, and I know you want to come through that way, but I have a different way for you. And it's
Yeah.
the VIP back door, and it's way better
Love
than
that.
I ever thought it would be. And
Yeah.
it's, it, I can speak now a little bit too about the fact I had a failed marriage. So my first marriage, but even the way that that occurred. So I came back to Minnesota after going to makeup and wardrobe school. I had to come back basically to save up money because I wasn't yet in event planning, and I had to come back and save up money. In that time, somebody that I um felt was like one of my best friends, I was heartbroken. And all of a sudden something shifted, and we started talking again, and I was so crushed that I was like, this is I'll never be in love again, I'll never have that feeling again. And somehow, some way, God just worked in my life and was like, nope, this is your person. And I ended up moving back to Los Angeles. We got married. It was crazy how it all happened like super fast. And that's way when you look at like backdoor moments and God works in your life, it's when you're aligned with him and your plan, things happen real fast. They happen like not like when you walk through the door and he's like, I'm presenting this to you and it's perfect and it's the way you wanted. Um when he works through you and what you're aligned for your purpose, it's always a backdoor moment, and it happens really fast, so fast that you feel like you can't catch your breath. And when I look at all those times in my life where those amazing moments happened, it was like that. And so I get married, and we have this, amazing story. And I started my event planning career through that wedding. It was an amazing, beautiful wedding. We had like fire blowers, and it was incredible. It was, when you think of like Hollywood weddings, this was it. And it kicked off my event planning career. That's when I met that wedding planner, and I got to go do that Malibu wedding, and I'm standing on the cliff going, this is crazy. How did I even get here? And
one of those hallelujah moments, like, praise God.
yes, I mean,
I would have been so
better than
excited.
better than I even imagined. And so I start doing event planning for film studios, because at the time my husband was involved in movie and TV also. So we had lots of connections, and I was able to start my career that way. And um, started planning weddings on the West Coast, and it was wonderful. But I also think about at that time. So, you know how a lot of people talk about how when things are going great in your career, usually your personal life is crappy. So we were still at that time, I was still not a religious. I wouldn't have classified myself of having a relationship with God, other than whenever I needed something, I would say, please God, make this happen for me. And I would journal about it and pray on it, even though I didn't really have a faith life. And I started praying that I wanted to have a baby. And at the same time, the pressure of trying to have a child and trying to also make my career happen at the same time, and I felt like I was doing all the things right. I was given this amazing opportunity, and I'm standing at the door once again, and I'm like, okay, God, I have the house, I have the husband, I am working on my career, and I feel like it's starting to get really good, so give me the child, give me the baby, give me what I want. All I wanted to do was be a mother, and it wasn't happening. And I was like, what is wrong with me? What, God, why won't you open this door for me? I prayed on, having my dream career and having my dream marriage, and you gave all that to me. Why won't you give me this child? And I had a really hard time with that for a long time. Or I shouldn't say a long time, because now it's like a glimpse of my life. But at the time, it felt like this is taking so long.
Right. Yeah.
And in the meantime, while I was so focused on that, everything started to fall apart. And my marriage was falling apart. All of a sudden, every event that I was planning was not going well. And I started to really question, like, am I even supposed to be here? Am I supposed to be married to this person? I started to question everything about my life. And I was not in touch with God. I didn't know where my future was going to be. All I could see at that time was I wanted to be a mother so badly. And I felt like God's telling me I am born to be a mother, so that I could, to me, I wanted so badly to be a mom, mainly because I wanted to do better than my mom did. It was always something in me that was like, I am going to have a child, and I'm going to raise that child. I'm going to be the best mom and show my mom how bad she screwed up. That was kind of like in the back of my mind the whole time. And it just wasn't happening. And at that time, my husband at the time was an alcoholic. It was, I was so hopeless. of like, oh my gosh, he's going to kill himself and I'm not going to be able to be a mother. And so I said, I need to take a break. I came back to Minnesota for a little bit. We were separated, and that time he filed. And it was devastating. And I was like, I could not believe it. I was like, now I'm even farther back than I ever thought I would be. And I'm back to square one. Here I am. I have no baby. I have to restart my career because I'm sitting here in Minnesota and I had started my career in Los Angeles. So I had to basically start brand new again, start
Right.
fresh in a whole new place. I had not lived in Minnesota in 10 years. So it was like I had to make a new community. It was horrible. I had to start all over again. And I realized in that time too, that's I very quickly after that, I met my now husband, and I got pregnant with my first child. And also another backdoor moment. I met my husband. I got involved in the hospitality industry in Minnesota. So I was redoing my career.
Right.
Um, I worked as a director of sales for a hotel. I worked really hard. So I was climbing my way back up through my
Right.
career. And I got a restart. I got to meet my now husband. I finally got to be a mom and I got what I wanted. And all of a sudden I lost my job. My first baby, 6 weeks after I had him, the company that I worked for was a hospitality management company. They decided to dissolve the catering portion that I was in charge of. And because they owned like hotels and other things, and they just decided we're going to dissolve this piece. And here I was with a 6-week-old baby. And once again, here I was sitting with everything I always wanted, and another piece fell off the puzzle. And I again didn't know how I was going to um, get through it. And it just so happened that at that time, somebody came into my life that was a friend of, like a childhood friend of my husband's. And she invited me to a Bible study. And I had never been to a Bible study. Still at that time, had never really had a relationship with reading the Bible, nothing. So I had I didn't know what to expect when I
Right.
accepted the invitation. And I was just thinking, oh, I'm going to go to this and I'll get to sit with other women for an hour and a half and get a break from my baby.
All right.
and and here it transformed my life. Absolutely transformed my life. I finally found a relationship with God. I finally started to understand the foundation of what that meant. And I started to understand how to accept and deal with all of the things that had happened in my life that I had felt like I had failed at. And I started to really realize, God intended things to happen this way. God put this purpose on my life so that I could share these stories, so that I could go through all these things and then some, and to have this relationship with Him that He was always calling me to do, but I never fully stepped into it until that point.
I always say you can't outrun God. You can try.
Well,
You
and
can.
honestly, I felt I probably was doing that. I was probably trying to outrun him. I was
Mhm.
always trying, like when I decided to move back to Minnesota, I was outrunning God. I looked back at that time and I think that I was definitely trying to take the reins of the horse and drive it myself, even though
Right.
he was probably like, you know, I'm trying to drive you. Will you just let me drive you?
Right. Right. So at what point did you actually start then Adore Productions?
So Adore Productions always what started in Los Angeles.
Okay, and
And
then just transferred over with you. Okay.
yep, I just transferred it over. And then so in after I had went to the women's Bible study and started to have a relationship with God, that's when I also at that time, so I had lost my job. I started doing events on my own again, just like I had in Los Angeles, in between where I could, because my husband and I are dual business owners. So we own two retail stores, and that's his jam. And I have the event planning company, plus I have my sons, so I would fit in events wherever I could. And in that time, after losing my job and all that stuff, and trying to be supportive to my husband being an entrepreneur, and then also being a mother, I felt like, oh, there's no way I can, reach the goals that I want to reach now, because I've got these two kids. Um I have to be there for them. The kids need to be my first priority, and my husband needs to be my first prior or second priority, and that's just the way it is. Mine come last. And so
I have
it was a
totally been
constant.
there. I think a lot of moms feel that.
Yeah. And so it was a constant battle of me trying to prove to myself that I could still do it. So I would book events in between taking care of the kids and making sure the businesses are running. Um, the retail stores are running, and helping him with that, and in finding ways to find my passion and what I believed God put in me as a purpose. Um, through events and trying to book them all, as much as I could. And it was also through that I started publishing a magazine about celebration and lifestyle, because it was an easy way for me to share what I think is my purpose, and showcase also events and creatives. And so I started publishing and producing Adore Magazine, which is a celebration and lifestyle magazine. And then we have a coinciding podcast that goes along with it too.
That is awesome. You just don't stop. When do you like sleep?
I
I
don't.
was, I was just
I
curious.
don't.
Like, is that a thing? When do you sleep?
It's not, it's so funny because I am a night owl, and actually I get my second wind right around like 3 o'clock. It's such a bummer too sometimes, because I wish sometimes that I could be the person that it gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning and works out and has and goes to bed at 8 or 8:30, but I just can't. I am the person that I'll stay up until 1 or 2 in the morning if I allow myself to. Most of the time I go to bed at midnight, because I get my second wind right around 3, and that's when I'm like, oh, all this ideas and clarity and stuff start happening for me. And maybe that's too because being in film and television, you're up late hours. In events, whenever I do events and event planning, those always go until, if usually in the
Yeah.
evening, usually in 11, 12 o'clock. So it's just like my mentality and schedule is to be on that type of schedule.
Oh,
So I don't really
absolutely.
sleep.
Well, I'm the same way though, because for me, I homeschool 5 children and I run a coaching business. I help people build websites, and then I have my podcast. And, you know, I work better at night when my kids are quiet. so, so for me, a lot of times it's like about 12:30 when I'm finally like, okay, time to go to bed now. But that is it. I think sometimes it just works better. You can get more done that way.
Mhm.
So I know you said you have a women's business networking group. Let's share a little bit about that too. Like I said, Kat
Oh,
here does not sleep or take a break, clearly.
no. Okay. So in the pandemic, Obviously events were not happening. And so I wanted to find a way to connect with like-minded women and individuals. And I had consulted with a few hospitality companies since leaving the hotel industry. Um, I was a director of sales for a while at a hotel before I had my kids too. And so I wanted to find a way to connect with other businesses. And just before the pandemic, I was consulting with a few businesses on their client engagement and guest experience and sales and marketing um, through events and things like that. And so I was like, well, maybe I should do like a women's business group. And so I started hosting one just on Zoom, and we would meet once a month, and it was great. Just mainly small business owners, small women that some of them didn't even have like a week into their business and they were joining, and they were like, I just want to know, as many other women businesses that and hear their experience and what should I do and not do. And I was like, oh, there's something to this. There's something about this community that's growing. And so through the years since 2020, I would push the gas, and then I'd be like, oh, my events are kind of taking up my time. And it would end up being like a secondary thing for me because I was doing it out of the kindness of my heart. I wasn't like making money off of it or anything,
Right.
and I wasn't like a coach. So I decided a few years ago, oh, I want to put some more effort towards this. And I started really leaning into it because of some of the women's stories. And all of a sudden, we started getting more members. And I was like, I have things to share here. I have marketing advice. I have my event design, advice on how to engage with customers and how to really help female entrepreneurs balance like the heaviness of having this dream on your heart and then feeling so tied down to your family at the same time,
Yeah.
and or whatever is tying you down, because there are single entrepreneurs that are part of our group that are not mothers and they don't have partners yet, but they still have all these other responsibilities, whether that be to their parents or to respond. Sometimes it's just them not understanding or stepping into what their life could be. Instead, they're living in what they thought their life should be. And
Mhm.
so one of the things about the entrepreneur group, it's called Entrepreneurial Vision Collective, and we have now 300 members, and it's growing, and it's unbelievable. We meet 1 to 2 times a month. I do tips and advice in the group, and I have little challenges that I challenge the women to help them grow and step out of their comfort zone. And it's just my way of helping other women entrepreneurs.
I
I'm
love
not,
this.
yeah, it's not like I'm sitting there going, I know everything and this is how you should do it. And this is how you should, because we all have different businesses.
Yeah.
There's women that have, wellness businesses, there's physical therapists, there's holistic doctors, there's somebody that owns a farm and she's trying to kind of grow it into something that could be like comparable to like a magnolia type of situation. So there's all different types of women in this group, but it's amazing how common how they find these commonalities between each other. And one of the main things about the group that I always wanted to be the cornerstone of it is that we are there to lift each other up. We are not there to judge. We are not there to make someone feel like they have to be on the defense about why they made the choices that they made or why they
Right.
don't feel confident or whatever. We're not there to do that. We're there to lift each other up, cheer each other on, support each other, go on each other's social media and say, hey, good job. Because one of the things in having your own business, I think that a lot of people don't realize is that you can't depend on your friends and family to help you make the millions. That's not how you do it. You do it by banding with other small businesses. You do it by your relationship building, by people you don't know.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, I often say that sometimes your family and friends can be your worst enemies in business. I've learned that. And I am learning that like even more now. When I started this podcast, I had people tell me like nobody's going to want to come on your podcast. And I'm like, "Oh, okay. I'm gonna show you." and you have to have that mindset, but you have to have people in your corner. And so I think that's beautiful, just a place where people can encourage each other, support each other, be there for one another. And because unfortunately you have to have like-minded individuals. You have to be sitting at a table with like-minded individuals to pursue your dreams, and especially to be an entrepreneur, you just have to be sitting at the right tables, or a lot can pull you back, and it's tough, and you overcame all of that. So I think it's amazing how you're just devouring into women who are just wanting that. So definitely send me the link for that Facebook group, because I would love to be in it. And I would love to share it with other women too, because everybody deserves to have a group where you just feel supported and loved and encouraged, and we can all learn from one another. We
Mm-hmm.
all have different gifts for a reason, and that's how we learn and we grow together. So I think that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. One of my like amazing, I think about this sometimes about where this group could go. And I would love to be able to see like little EVCs pop up all over the country of like, this is what we're about. This is what we're here to help each other. So, yeah.
yeah. And just, yeah. I mean, even just meeting or having like a big old conference where everybody can go and just enjoy each other face to face too one day. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, what would you give advice to a young person first that might be struggling and just doesn't know where to turn in life, but they have a vision?
Well, when I think about that, there was around the time that I started going to the Bible study group that I found after I had my first kid, I went to this other event that was part of that. And there was a woman that gave me a Bible verse, and it was about the lilies in the field. They do not toil, they do not spin. And I always refer back to that in my life of all the times that I've worried that it's not going to work out the way that I want it to, or all the times that I thought God doesn't have my back and I felt lost or alone or like I got left behind. And I just want people to realize and women to realize that He has your back. You
Yes.
don't have to worry. And I always lean on that verse whenever I feel anxious or like something's not going to work or like I didn't make the right choice. I think about how God takes care of those lilies in the field. They do not toil and they do not spin because they know that God is there to make them grow.
Right.
And um, that's exactly what I tell myself. That's what I have to continually remind myself is that He's going to take care of me.
He
And
is.
so you just have to, one of the biggest things too is learning to listen to God, learning to have that relationship early on. While I wish that I had had that relationship with him much, much sooner, there was something there. Even though I didn't know it, there was something
Right.
there. He was speaking to me in a way that I didn't understand. I think the sooner that you hone that language with him, the
Right.
better it opens your eyes to things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not working and not speaking through you. And so I think just learning how to have that awareness,
Yeah.
and that relationship with him is like probably number one. But yeah, and learning that he's going to take care of you. Don't worry.
Right. Yeah. And he's going to take care of you. I always say, make God the CEO of your life and your business. And that is where you are going to find the most success in life. Because if we make God the CEO of everything in our life, you you're going to succeed. And the one thing I just really implanted in my head is this podcast isn't mine. It's God's.
Absolutely.
And when you know that the business isn't just for you, like God created a reward system, right? That's why we do business. So, the financial part is a reward system, but it is his children serving his other children. And he
Mhm.
rewards us, and that's how we communicate, and that's how the world goes round, and that's how we create love and unity. So I think it's just huge to just share that with people. And, if you go at something, you might be successful for a little while, but if you don't have God as your cornerstone, it will eventually fall.
That's correct.
But
Absolutely.
that doesn't mean that, we don't still have struggles. There's been nights where I have looked at my computer, building a website for someone, and like everything is glitching and not doing what I want it to do, and I just shut the whole thing down. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I'll just sit there and pray for a few minutes, and this overwhelming calmness will come over me. And I open my computer back up, and then everything works. And I'm like, thank you. Thank
Hmm.
you. And so,
Hmm.
I mean, things get tough. There are struggles that you are going to have, and you just have to keep pushing through
Hmm.
because there's a rainbow of promises waiting for you.
Well, and I think too, in those moments, I've had to learn, what is God trying to tell me? He's trying to say, don't pay attention to that website right now, right? When he's making when the computer is glitching out, it's because you need to be paying attention to something else in your life at that time. He's trying to guide you through those little messages, those moments. And it's learning how to be in tune with all that. Like, what is God
So true.
teaching me through
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. And that's so true because there's often times where I'm like, okay, things are getting frustrating, or I've done this too much. So I take a moment, I take a break, and I walk away, I pray, and then I come back and everything calms down. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that is huge. All right. So, Kat, do you have anything to leave us with today?
Okay. Well, gosh, we covered so many amazing things. I mean, I love like I love helping people find their people, being that connector. So I would just say, I would encourage everybody that's listening to make sure that you're putting yourself in rooms with people that are there to lift you up. I think that's a key part of filling your purpose, is learning how to put yourself in the rooms with the people that are there to support you, and not go, oh, look at that, look at her, look at that, learning how to drown out that noise and walk out of that room and say, this is not meant for me. Knowing how to understand, like, what tables you're meant to sit at and which ones you're not, and being okay with it.
Yes.
You accepting that you're not meant to sit at every single table and there's a reason for it.
Right.
And protecting your space. I mean, your space and your energy and your time is is very valuable. And understanding that, your worth is higher than high, and you should make that standard be something for everybody that you allow into your life, into your circle, into your business. Um, Really making sure that you have high standards for who is there, and not just taking every single thing that comes in front of you.
Yeah.
Understanding that God has those backdoor moments for you.
Absolutely. That is wonderful. Well, Kat, we thank you so much for being with us today. Anybody that needs, event planning, definitely reach out to Kat Minks.
Thank
And
you.
seriously, we appreciate you being with us today. I appreciate all your wisdom and knowledge and your expertise because there's a lot of, I know I'm definitely learning a lot today from you. So I appreciate it. And I think everybody else will appreciate it too.
Oh,
So thank you all so much. We love you all and have a blessed day.
thank you, Kayla.